This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's talk a little bit about, we talked a lot about the success. Let's talk about some of the challenges, because before this, certainly you had traveled, but the WWE schedule, that's really the roughest thing of being a WWE superstar, right?
Yes, the schedule is the toughest. You know, when you're doing 300 dates a year, it can be quite brutal on you mentally, physically, and spiritually. I mean, it's a tough grind. And I think that was the hardest part. The second hardest was the psychology, learning how to structure the match and put the false finishes in the right place and put the finishes in the right place and make sure you make the match very intriguing. Those two are the toughest things. Also, being accepted by the boys. You want to make sure that you make the right moves and you don't create any heat for yourself. So there's a lot of work that goes into being a pro wrestler. There are many different facets.
One of the weird things I've always been fascinated with is like this weird brotherhood. Like there's this political landscape to wrestling, but also an understanding where everybody sort of takes care of one of another. Easy for me to say physically, but politically, it can become interesting. Do you remember any moments that were frustrating in your first year, or maybe teachable moments, things you learned in that first year? Besides, of course, the Bob Holly thing, which we addressed.
No, I learned that there were politics, and I've seen them occur, but never to me directly. So I didn't get involved in them. I don't want to mention any names because that's not who I am and what I'm about. But there were politics, and there are people pulling for themselves, which I get. I understand. Everybody's going to pull for themselves to be the top guy. Everybody wants to be the top guy or girl. So I understand that. So, it's just something that you have to accept in the business.
What about JBL? Any interesting stories where he felt like he had to acclimate you to being one of the boys?
JBL he verbally ribbed everybody. He didn't do a lot of ribs, but he was very vocal, and he was a bit of a bully. I mean, he's harmless. He doesn't mean to be offensive. He just has that personality where, he needs to rib someone or pick on someone about something. And, he was entertaining though. I mean, it wasn't really a bad thing. It was actually a good thing that he did. It made our days on the road a lot more entertaining that he was ribbing people.
I've had it described to me over the years that he was just like a locker room ball buster that you would find in a lot of locker rooms. There's just one guy who just wants to bust balls, right?
He's the one guy that's going to bust everybody's balls. Yes.
Yeah. What about your favorite agent through this era? Was it always Pat Patterson, even in your first year, or did you enjoy working with some other agents as well?
Pat Patterson was my favorite agent. I did work with a lot of different agents, but Pat was the best. He would come up with the best stuff. He always had an extra interest in me and The Rock. He also worked with Jericho quite a bit. But Pat was very innovative. He came up with great stuff, great finishes, great false finishes. He was timeless because he came from the 70s and 80s, but he still had the mind for it in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s. He was just, he was always getting better and better with the psychology. And up until the day he passed away, he was just as sharp as ever.
On the September 4th Raw, you're in a triple threat match with Eddie Guerrero and the Intercontinental Champion, Chyna. She does a good job here. And you hit a really snug clothesline, and the crowd reacts almost with an audible gasp, like they didn't want to see that. But the announcers even defend you a little bit, and then she hits a snug clothesline on you. Eventually, though, you hit her with the belt and knock her out. Eddie accidentally pins her and wins the title. It's one of the more unique major title changes in history. How would you describe this match? What do you remember about this?
Eddie stole the show with that one. I mean, when he covered Chyna and was holding her like, she was hurt because hit her with the title. He was holding her, and when the ref counted 3 and Eddie's head popped up like, oh shit, I just pinned her. He didn't know he pinned her. It was just a great way to switch the title. I mean, it was really creative, and it seemed like Eddie didn't really try to do it, and that he was just trying to protect China, and he ended up being the Intercontinental Champion because of it. It was hilarious.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.